You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 268 of the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and I guess with the last 6 episodes have come out of Resistance, and we felt it was time that we just got together and kind of touch base with how things are going, checking in on the Colossus crew. And to do so, joining me tonight, as always, is none other than our very own Resistance fighter himself, Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. How you doing this week?
I am doing good. I'm actually doing pretty good. We're 40 days away? Is that less? 40 days away from Celebration at this point?
Yeah, today's the very last day of February. We are getting into that 30-day window. So this is getting super exciting now.
Yeah, we'll get to that here in a little bit in terms of what we're planning and doing and all of that. But on top of
real stressful.
It's getting very stressful. On top of all that, we've got a ton of news. Like for a while there, it felt like we were going to really have anything to talk about. And then once again, Wednesday comes around and we get a dump load of just tons of stuff, especially around Star Wars Celebration. So we'll start though with the solo score. And you threw this in here. I don't even know I've ever heard of the International Film Music Critics Association Awards. And I said it for you so you wouldn't have to.
Oh, thank you.
But it sounds like the solo score picked up some trophies here, some hardware.
Yeah, it did. This is a really big deal for cinematic scores in general. And John Powell won Score of the Year for Solo. And he also won Best Original Score for a fantasy science fiction horror film. And then John Williams, of course, won Film Music Composition of the Year for The Adventures of Han Solo. So that's really exciting. And what's really surprising about all that is they won these very prestigious accolades, and yet they weren't even nominated for an Academy Award.
Yep.
So it just goes to show these things don't make any sense. But congratulations. It was a great score. It was, it really added to the film, and really exciting to see Star Wars back in the winner's circle there for some awards.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about the Oscars too. That just passed, I think this past weekend, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. And Solo didn't win Best Visual Effects. I think that was probably the only thing that was nominated. I may be wrong there, but I know that was the big one that at least was being broadcast on national TV, and it wasn't, we had these awards the week before and here are the winners kind of thing. So, but that was the one that we talked about on the show a couple weeks ago, where Ready Player One was going up against it. And it turns out it was The First Man. Was that it that won?
Yeah. None of the Disney movies, basically.
Yeah. What's up with that? So yeah, I got that one completely wrong, but, so bummer there. So speaking though, let's talk about Star Wars Always. So this is a video that came out just recently, just a couple of days ago. It's been put together by Jeff Yorks and Topher Grace. Yes, that Topher Grace.
Venom himself.
Himself, yeah. That 70s show guy himself. And this was a video they put together. It's about 5 minutes in length. And if you've not had a chance to go out and look at it, I highly recommend you do, because they did a really good job of mixing and splicing together, or editing all the Star Wars movies videos together to kind of tell a story from beginning to end. I don't know how a better way to describe it. It's like a one long trailer for all of the movies, right? But they interchange stuff from Solo, the original trilogy, the sequel trilogy, back and forth, and it's very progressive in terms of how it plays along. But I've seen this video now, I don't even know how many times. We've watched it over and over and over again, and it kind of really had a lot of people talking about it when it came out. It wasn't even just because it was Topher Grace. It was just, it's a really good video. I've enjoyed it a lot. How many times have you had a chance to look at this now?
Yeah, I've watched it a few times now, and you're right. This is the first time we've seen all, what are we up to? 10 movies now?
Yeah.
All stitched together in something semi-cohesive to tell a story. And that was really neat to see. I think this is, we have a lot of talented people out there in a variety of spaces, and the editing that we see on YouTube and a variety of other sources is really kind of mind-blowing to me. These things take so much time. And something like Star Wars, you could just feel the amount of love that went into it in order to create something that really just laid a great story out there and kind of walked you through it. There were parts that you could probably critique it if you wanted to, but overall, this was really great to watch. and to kind of feel like you had a cohesive story all the way through and tie those threads all the way through.
Yeah, great video. Again, it's about 5 minutes long. Totally worth your 5 minutes. It's the best 5 minutes you'll spend, in my opinion, here with some Star Wars fan-made film type stuff. So go check that out if you can. Let's talk about Galaxy's Edge, because this is another thing that's happened here just recently. As of last night, we got one breaking thing, and then prior to that, let's talk about what happened earlier in the week. This was a costume reveal, which I thought was weird that they were doing it as the way they did it. Right, it was a big reveal. They're going to show the costumes. What's that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of costumes, and I get, okay, well, maybe they probably had to do this because, I mean, I'm scrolling through page after page of this stuff. But what did you think about this? Are you going to be wearing any of these? Because I'm looking at this first picture of these people, and
you got to get further into the list. The first several are very much, if you go to Disney today and you go to Star Tours, they still have these gray and royal blue and kind of orange accents for the cast members. And some of the early outfits you see in the post, and we'll have this linked in the show notes, are very reminiscent of that. They're a little cartoonish, a little throwbackish, if you will, kind of 80s kind of feeling a little bit. But as you get into it further down, you really start to get the classic Star Wars feel. You get the smuggler type of outfits. You get more of the Tatooine, the kind of robes and the outfits that we see with Luke and Rey, and more of the, those types of fabrics, as well as you start to see the First Order costumes and the Resistance costumes. Then you start getting into the actual movie replica type of styles, if you will. And I think overall, these are going to look really good. I mean, the ones I thought were actually my favorites that weren't, from a movie type of deal or from one of the movies or replicating it, were actually some of the food place outfits that, again, had more of the tunic type style to them. I thought they did a pretty good job. So it'd be interesting to see these in person and how they wear them and how they really fit with whatever space they're in. But you're right. It was a lot of costumes.
Well, so I'm looking at these, and I've heard everything from they're great to this is terrible, they look horrible. But I mean, come on, guys. Have you not seen?
It's still a theme park, guys.
It's a theme park, one. Yeah, good point. It's a theme park. And two, go look at the costumes that we've had from like the original trilogy, especially like episode 4. I mean, they're not, looking back at them, they look dated and antiquated and they look, not in style. But this isn't, I don't know what style this is. It ain't a style that we're used to. So I don't know how anybody can be really nitpicky with the costumes. I mean, I don't know what you're looking for if you're, tearing down these costumes, because this is Star Wars and we've seen just about everything. And
and if you go to the parks, these kind of fit with what you see in the other parts of the parks. And I will admit, often the outfits that they're wearing now do feel a little dated in some spaces. And some of these, I wish they were a little bit different. But I think overall, when you start looking at, you start getting through the list and you start to see it, the ones that we're going to care the most about are the ones near the rides and with in some of these spaces where you have more interactivity. And it looks like they've nailed those, or they've got pretty close on most of those. They're not going to all be perfect or fit it. I think generally they've captured that feel and they've captured the Star Wars essence for this park. So generally they get a thumbs up from me. A couple of them I'm like, well, that's kind of typical crummy, costuming, but that's just my personal take on it. But the ones they had to get right, it looks like they're going to get right. Yeah.
And I'm looking at some of these and it feels like, just to talk about Resistance, the show, it's kind of similar to that. Like I can see some of the style being pulled from that show too. So it fits. It makes sense. No pun intended.
I think it's going to work. Yeah.
Yeah. But what do I know? I wear t-shirts and jeans all day. All right. So the other thing we got last night, midnight, 12 o'clock, getting all these teasers from the Brez over at Entertainment Weekly saying that something big was coming, that kind of thing. And I know you and I were up. I think Mike was up as well. We were all waiting for this. And we kind of had a feeling that it was going to be Galaxy's Edge related and not necessarily episode 9 or a title or anything like that. And it turned out to be related to Galaxy's Edge. And it was Entertainment Weekly announced their Fast Pass look at Galaxy's Edge. And so we kind of got a firsthand accountable experience from somebody like Anthony Breznican, who was telling us about what Galaxy's Edge was going to be like. So this is very similar to like the stuff he did last year or 2 years ago. My apologies. 2 years ago when he was talking about The Last Jedi and kind of spilling the beans and giving us a lot of inside information that hadn't been leaked or released officially just yet. So what we got from that were everything from what Smuggler's Run, the ride, is going to be like, to Rise of the Resistance, to we got to see some plates of food and what that was going to look like. There was a menu that was released, merchandise, just a lot of pictures and a lot of, I guess everything. It was a total like 8 or 10 different write-ups that he did.
Yeah.
With a lot of information about the theme park. So the cat's out of the bag at this point. But I guess, so what for you stood out from all of that? Was anything, did this get you even more excited than you already were for Galaxy's Edge? Or was this stuff that you were expecting and was kind of
But yeah, I mean, some of this stuff wasn't really all that new, but it's interesting to see what kind of food offerings they're going to do. They did something like this with Pandora, with Avatar, not quite on this scale or this kind of buildup, but it released out and you start to get an idea of what to expect. And the theming of the food is usually the more interesting thing than what you're actually going to get. But honestly, it was the merchandise that kind of caught my attention, because that's when they did Toy Story Land, that fell a bit flat. They weren't quite ready for it. They had some design issues in that regard, but they seem to be very ready to sell you all the things and take all of your monies for the merchandise. And one of the ones that was most interesting, I thought, was the lightsaber. They've got a build your own lightsaber, which is what they have today. But the one you built today is very much like the one you would go buy at Walmart or Target or something like that. And, at a regular store. But this one is $110. Now, 110 Disney dollars is not quite the same as a collectible $110, but usually it's kind of getting into that realm. So I'm really curious. And there were some pictures, and the hilts looked, something resembling a higher quality. And it looks like you're going to have an actual blade, so it's not this plastic extendable thing. So I'm really curious to see how they actually implement that and what that looks like. Because $110, you're still in this realm of that's something that someone will just on a whim go in and pick one up. And they've been selling for 100 to 150, something that's a kind of a quote unquote replica lightsaber already. And so how will this stack up with that? I think will be kind of neat.
Yeah.
But I don't want to steal your thunder, because there was another pretty cool thing that got announced.
Yeah. So the one thing that I got excited about was we got to see Hondo Ohnaka. Yeah. And we got a animatronic of him, and it is, go watch the video. It's like scary realistic in terms of how it moves. And even when it's just kind of idle, when he's just, his mouth is moving, his body is still very slightly moving. It just 100% natural. I mean, it's like Rise of the Robots, Terminator, Judgment Day type stuff. Like, wow, if they gotten this good with the animatronics at this point, it's better than the Pirates of the Caribbean animatronics that I remember at Disneyland. So,
it absolutely is. And Disney and animatronics and all of the newer rides that they've done, it's incredible. Each one gets better. Each one gets more lifelike, to where it's a little more difficult. You still know it's animatronic because you're a smart, intelligent human being.
Right.
Congratulations, listeners. Everybody is this. So, but when you still see it, the fluid, how fluid the motions are, and the way that they have certain little ticks or little motions. The attention to detail in these things is really incredible. They've got a shaman on one of the Pandora rides, and it's really well done. The ride's kind of on the boring side a little bit, but the motion of the shaman is incredible. And so I was really excited when they were going to do this with Galaxy's Edge. And what better character to do it than with Hondo, because you're going to get a great voice track to go with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the for those of you who have not seen the video, as you're waiting in line for Smuggler's Run, you are actually partaking in some kind of some part of the adventure and part of the storyline, even while you're waiting in line. And so part of it is you're getting direction from Hondo Ohnaka, and at one point you see him, I guess. So right. It seems like they're doing a lot of the things right here to try to make you forget that you're waiting in a line for so long, right? Keep you occupied, keep you busy, which is probably the best that we could hope for, given how busy this thing is going to be.
Yeah, what's really interesting on Smuggler's Run is that it's not a queue. You get some sort of, I'm just going to call it like a pager or something like that, a queue, like a numbering type of system, and you can just wander around and you just do what you want. But yeah, Disney's really stressed this of having interactive lines, to where when you're in line, there's something to do. There's something to keep the kids from going insane.
Right.
And you can imagine these lines are going to be 4 to 6 hours long. They'll probably end up capping the line. They'll be that long.
All right. So overall, I'm maybe a little bit more excited about this, but I'm not. I think I've told you this is not. This just seems something that keeps getting further and further away from being a reality for me. So it's cool. I will live vicariously through everybody else, but
I'm going to whisk you away, and we'll have a guys retreat after Disney. Your family will hate you forever, but you'll have a wonderful time.
Yes. What more could I ask for? All right. Well, let's talk about Star Wars Celebration because again,
is that a thing?
Yeah, it is a thing. And I know we're going a little bit over on news. So we're going over longer than we normally do. But let's talk about the Star Wars Celebration art reveal. So for those of you guys that know or have never been, they tend to release all these special edition type art prints that you can purchase exclusively while you're at Celebration. And they get the best of the best. And that is exactly what we got here. There is some outstanding artwork that they are selling now, or they will be selling at Star Wars Celebration. I don't know, maybe we'll throw the link in the show notes if you haven't had a chance to see these. You can go to starwars.com. You can kind of scroll through all the different prints that they've got. Lots of different types of paintings versus, oils versus sketches, drawings, that kind of thing. There are so many. They're all great. I mean, they're all absolutely amazing stuff. And I don't know. Do you have a favorite here that you've got your eye on? Is this something that you would purchase?
I've got 7 or 8.
Well, there's $900 at least.
These are So it's a good point. These are usually limited somewhere in the 2 to 250. So 250 range of releases. Some of these you can go pre-order right now, but you have to pick them up at Celebration. So these truly are Celebration exclusive. This isn't like a Hasbro Celebration exclusive where afterwards you can go buy it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, there's almost 10 that I'm really, really interested in. But the one that really jumped out to me was by Chris D called Pack Hunt.
Yeah. This has you written all over it.
Oh, it's perfect. So this is the Clone Troopers, and they're modeled after Navy SEAL paratroopers. So you're kind of below them and you see them jumping down. And it's such a great thing. And if you love Clone Troopers, this is almost, I think this is a must buy. So I need to go and look for this one to see if they've done a pre-order, because it would fit with some of the artwork I've got for Clone Wars.
Yeah, there's some, I don't know. You got to see these. I posted one of them foolishly, and I should have waited to post the rest of them on Instagram. I think I posted the Darth Maul one because I really geeked out over that one. Yeah. But again, they've got everything from the Mandalorian to Phantom Menace to there's a
Matt Bush
Rogue
has got
One
in there.
What's that?
Yeah. Matt Bush has got one in there from Solo.
Mm-hmm.
One of the really interesting ones was by Zoltan Simon with Padme.
Yeah,
and it has the outline of Vader's helmet around her, and it was I don't know if it's the art style that I like, but the concept of it was really, really cool. So
it is, and it's called The Good in Him.
Yeah, it's kind of ill-starred love / The Good in Him. Very cool title, very cool image. And again, so we'll have that link. Go check these out. There's a ton of great artwork if you're into Star Wars artwork.
And we got more guests coming. So Ray Park, shocker. I think that we all knew that was coming. That coincides with the 20th anniversary of The Phantom Menace. Right. We got Matt Lantner there. Shocker again. That's probably no big surprise. And then we got Tia Sakar, who is the voice of Sabine. So all 3 of them have been now announced as well. So just add that to the growing list of celebrities that we are expecting to see at Celebration. Any thoughts around these guys? They're all pretty much A-class.
Yeah, they're all great. Matt Lanter's always a crowd favorite, and Tia Sakar, super popular. So exciting.
And got some gaming news as well for Star Wars Celebration. They've got, they're going to have a gaming presence, video game presence, which is weird because they don't really have, especially with, all the feedback that we've gotten from the Star Wars games and EA and everything else. But we are going to have a Jedi Fallen Order panel. So that seems to be a big enough thing that they're going to have an exclusive panel just for that and talk about that. Makes you wonder how much of that's going to tie in to whatever they've got in the works over at, either the channel or in future movies that they're going to be doing something. That's where my mind goes first, but I may be just hopeful wishing at that point. Galaxy of Heroes, Star Wars Pinball, and there's going to be some other games here and there. But the big announcement. They're going to have a Star Wars The Old Republic special event. And I think that's literally all it said. I don't know if there's been an update since then. I haven't seen anything.
That is all it has said.
But that is enough for me to confirm that they're going to add 5 more years to this game at least. So we're locked in.
We almost rebranded this episode.
Right. It was the SWOTOR update episode. So this is great news because if you play the game or at least you follow it enough, you know that the developers have been very much hinting that, no, trust us, things aren't going away. And it's more than just conjecture and making people feel like, no, really, everything's fine. We're not closing the servers down. You kind of got a sense that they were being sincere about it without really being able to say why or how. So when you see this, I would say I wouldn't get too excited, but it sounds like they're probably going to keep the lights on for at least another year, maybe possibly 2. Maybe they find a way to work in this, and maybe it all ties in. Maybe they are going to visit the Old Republic in some form, and that'll pump new life into this. So I don't know. I'm pretty excited about it.
You know, they keep flirting with adding more into the Legends. There's rumors of this going on too. So it wouldn't surprise me if this kept going on and they found a way to revitalize some of it, because it's so segmented away. Mm-hmm. And again, it's a way to kind of keep the Legends alive in some way. And yeah, I think that's always can be fun. That can always be a fun story.
Yeah. And so if that all is exciting to you and you are heading out to Celebration this year, please join us as well. We'll be announcing our date and time for our show very soon, hopefully. And also we've got a link out there that we'll put in the show notes. It's on the website, but eargluemedia.com/SWCC. You can go out there, sign up, and get alerts and information about where we will be and participate in anything that we're going to do, both during Celebration and even afterwards. We've got some things that we've got lined up as well. And then on top of all that, Jonesy and I, Mike, we've gotten together and we are planning out some Star Wars Celebration focused content that we hope to have released very soon. So these may be 15-minute episodes. It could be 30-minute episodes, just things that kind of tie into Star Wars Celebration as we get closer, maybe some behind the scenes stuff. And maybe some insight into possibly what we're going to do at the convention itself. But it's still early on, but we should have that coming to you guys very soon as kind of bonus content here. Anything else you want to add on that one?
No, please go sign up on the website. We've got a great list going.
All right. Well, I think that is the longest news segment I think we've done since our tenure together.
Challenge accepted.
And probably because we don't have this, well, all right. So let's do this. Let's get into the main show.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So the main show, it's been at least 6 episodes. I think maybe technically 7. There was one that came out just recently this past weekend, but we thought we'd just chunk the next 6. And then beyond this with Resistance, I think we've got, is it 3 more? And the last one's a 2-parter. Is that right?
That sounds about right.
I think so. So we'll have to come back and come back and touch on those, which, the last one, obviously season finales, especially with Filoni and some of the Star Wars animation that we've had in the past, they tend to be a little bit more meatier. There's more stuff that we can pull for them. So should be quite capable of putting the show together.
We got that teaser a week or 2 ago from Steve Stanton saying, hey, you're going to have a lot to talk about.
Big things are coming. And we're getting this. I think we're seeing some of the seeds planted. So we'll talk about that here. But yeah, so we've got a couple episodes. So we're going to be covering Bibo, Dangerous Business, the Doza Dilemma, the First Order Occupation, the New Order, and the New Trooper, and the Core Problem. So if you've not seen these episodes, this is your spoiler warning. We are going to get into spoilers. And again, we're not going to go, this isn't a review per se of the episodes themselves. We really want to just kind of, we tend to watch these things and kind of talk about the more important things. So we won't get into all the little side stories and some of the sight gags, and review it in that manner. But if there's anything that we felt like, hey, this is significant or there's substance here, we're going to kind of pick and pull at it as much as we can. But before we do that, I thought we just kind of get your thoughts overall in this batch of 6 episodes. How did you feel about them? And maybe how are you feeling about the series as a whole so far?
Yeah, I have to keep reminding myself this is still season 1. And these shows take a while to kind of get their footing and figure out and really lay the groundwork so they can then begin telling the story a little later on. And so we've had a lot of that, kind of world building, if you want to call it that way. But so I think it's been, while there's been some episodes earlier on that are a little bit slower or they're a little more comical or along those lines. As we started getting through these 6, we started to see the little nuggets coming through a little more frequently. and getting some really nice visuals. And it became a little more enjoyable as I went through the last several episodes in particular. But there's, it's a kid's show, but it's still pretty fun, and I think I'm enjoying it overall pretty well. And as we get into a little more of the serious tone, as we start to see where the story is going and really barreling towards The Force Awakens, it's interesting to see, how are they going to tie all this stuff in, and how much are they really going to show us? So it's really starting to pique my interest a little bit more and more as we go through those episodes. How about you?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think so. Kaz has really grown on me quite a bit. Probably more me than you. I think coming on the show earlier, we're talking about that, but I think Christopher Sean's doing a really great job with him. There's a level of like very sincere honesty around him. He's pretty upbeat. He's quirky and funny and that kind of thing. But even like Ezra had like a darker side to him, and you could see it up front. I just don't see that with him, and maybe that'll change. And I wouldn't even mind if it did. But everything's still very fresh in you and with him and that character. Niku is growing on me. I actually didn't really care for Niku one way or the other. I would say I was leaning to he could go away and I wouldn't really care about him. But I have to say, I'm like laughing at some of the things he says because he is just so literal, and he's consistently literal about every single thing and at every turn. So I think Josh, yeah, I know you think you
I can't help it.
But who's the actor? I forget now. Josh Brennan? I forget his name. Right.
Yeah.
But I think he's doing it. He's doing a great job. The comedy is starting to grow on me too, even though it is, again, like you said, it's geared towards children. I find myself laughing at a lot of the jokes. I think of that. There's one scene in there where they're in the elevator. Do you remember this? Where it's like, I can't forget it. It was Kaz and what's her name? Sonara. Yeah, they were in the elevator. And it's a stereotypical, the music, classical music playing, whatever. But just stuff like that I don't know. It is starting to grow on me quite a bit. And now here's the other thing too. The animation, we talked so much about in the first, recap or reaction show. We talked a lot about how bright and vivid the colors were. Right. These 6 episodes were some of the darkest, and I don't mean dark in theme, but I mean dark in color. Right. And I thought they did a great job with like the shadows, the lighting. Nothing ever was like hard to see, or they're whatever they're doing, it's working well. So again, I'm just really starting to really enjoy the animation more than I thought it would, because I thought I was going to be challenged to really get something from it when things got a little bit darker and all that. But I think they've done an outstanding job there as well. So
I agree with you. The engineering level has quickly become one of my favorite sets. Mm. Because it's just with all the the steam, the oranges, and you got and the turtles that are great. It's just it's a really cool environment, and you don't have I mean, you can get a lot of the shadows and you still keep a lot of that detail, but you don't have the abruptness that we saw a little bit earlier on, that we had said when you see a shadow, somehow you still have a really bright face coming at you. And I think they're starting to, I don't know if they solve these problems or they just get more mature, they get more comfortable with what they're doing, or maybe we're just getting more settled into it. But overall, really like it. Engineering has quickly become one of my favorites. The space, anything in space though, with the ships is still my favorite though. I just can't help it. It's, man, everything we see on screen is just so sharp and vivid, and the blasters, and it's great. Yeah. I love everything in space. So what can I say?
Yep. All right. Well, let's talk about the first episode, Bibo. And I've got a quick blurb here. Nico befriends an alien pet who draws the attention of its mother, that then attacks the Colossus in an attempt to rescue her offspring. So this one, on the surface, it didn't feel like there was a whole lot here going into it, but I was able to kind of pick up on a couple things. And you touched on one out the gate with Kel and Ayla, and whether or not they're force sensitive. Are you convinced at this point that they are force sensitive? This is the two younger kids, for those of you that are familiar with the show.
Yeah, they make an appearance from an earlier episode, the Children of Terrar, I think it was. Yeah, and I definitely feel like they're force sensitive. They could feel something was changing. They were having dreams, things like that. And so clearly they've got some connection here. And so again, the Force always finds a way to sneak it way into these stories. And I think this is a really good use of it, to where you don't have to throw it in our faces. We get it, and we can let it linger there, and maybe it'll come up later on. Maybe it won't. But I think they're definitely force sensitive. And I was kind of happy to see the kids come back a little bit, because I thought they were just going to get written off and they just disappear.
Well, and so on that point, and I'll kind of jump ahead here. And one of the things I took down as a note, and really what you asked me, what are you going to say about Bibo? I'm going to probably say the same thing I'm about to say now. If we know anything about Filoni and his style, I would say that a lot of what we see, even though on the surface it may not feel like much at all, and it feels like throwaway, none of it, I don't ever really feel like any of it is truly throwaway. I think there are always plans there to bring a lot of this stuff back and incorporate it. And that's just kind of been his motto, right? I think that's one of the things he said that he learned from George Lucas, is that you introduce something and you try to tie it back later, or you take material that's been released before and figure out a way to weave it into your storyline. And that was one of the things that I think it's just been a carryover from George Lucas and how he was trying to do things. But I never feel like this, especially like in Rebels and Clone Wars, and I'm getting the feeling here, I don't know that anything is really a throwaway. I think at some point, right, a lot of this will resurface. Even if they have intentions of resurfacing it, even if it doesn't come to fruition, I think they are going to try to. And this is where I would say with the kids, with Kel and Ayla, definitely I think they didn't throw those two kids in early on in season 1 to say, we'll never see them again. And we've seen them now in this episode. We see them again a little bit later. I think the Force piece of it is probably going to play a larger role down the road here as well. And I was surprised, and I'll jump ahead to one episode, but when we see them again after this, and they're fishing and they knock that stormtrooper out, I thought for sure she was going to use the Force in some way to kind of get away, and we didn't see that. And maybe that was the most obvious thing, but the fact that they're popping up in that episode as well, it sounds like they are going to be continue to be, I guess, a character that, or characters that we would see going forward. And the other thing, so yeah, you mentioned it. So I would agree, yes, they're Force sensitive. It wasn't so blatant, but it was enough that it was very much heavily implied that they were, especially Ayla, since I think he makes a comment that she's having that dream over and over again, and that quote, "It always comes true." So I think we'll probably see more of that. She sounds like she's got some kind of, she can Force vision of some type.
Yep, sounds like it.
And so
I think with Bebo is a good example of Filoni bringing in ideas even from Clone Wars, because they've had the monster episode.
Yeah,
and this reminded me very much of that, where you've got the giant tentacles attacking the base, and and it's the smallest thing that can save you from the largest threat. But so I thought it was a nice callback there. And if you're familiar with Clone Wars, or if you've seen them recently, you get that. And you also know that George Lucas always had these weird, exciting ideas about, hey, can we try this, and can we do a monster movie out of it?
Right.
And so this is very much Filoni channeling some of those same ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and I would be surprised if we didn't see Bebo again. I'm not going to say he's
Bebo's mommy. Separate episode. Yeah,
that's right. She was kind of just lurking there.
She's made some friends.
But maybe we see Bebo.
I'm not really kidding.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe we'll see him again as either the same or older. Who knows? Maybe he comes and saves them later on. You never know what's going to happen with that. But there was one other thing in here. I really enjoyed the sequence in this episode where A Squadron was firing up their engines to go attack that sea creature. Yeah. It reminded me a lot. Like, we've heard all along, this is an anime show. We've heard all along that this is a World War II kind of feel to it. But for me, that scene where they're running to their ships and they jump in there and they're firing, the cockpits are closing and they're getting their engines fired up. That was like straight out of the 70s and 80s anime, like Gotcha Man, Voltron. I mean, you can name any one of the team-based animes that kind of came out in that era, and we were getting those exact same shots. So it was pretty exciting. And I still am excited to see, what is his name? Griff Halloran or whatever, in Black Ace, the Imperial TIE fighter pilot.
Right.
Yeah, that one always hits me in the feels every time I see it, just because I really want to know more about that dude. But anyways, I really enjoyed that sequence.
I like you can hear the tie. It's very, very subtle, but it's still there.
Yeah. And then here's the other thing that I got from this episode, and you don't know about this one because I told you I was going to save it as a surprise for you. They make mention of, I don't remember if it's Kaz. Yeah, because they're talking about the Z95s, right? And he's like, are you sure it's not a Z96? And he says something in there. He says that it was used by a Reaper squadron. And so I'm thinking, okay, I don't remember a Reaper Squadron. And of course, I don't remember every single squadron in the freaking Clone Wars because there were so many. So I went back and just looked and said, has this ever been brought up before? And it has not. This was the first time Reaper Squadron has ever been mentioned. But I thought it was interesting that they threw that in there. And it got me suspicious as to why they would even put this reference in the show. And I started thinking about, what if we were to see in this new season of Clone Wars some kind of battle that takes place on Castellon, the planet, and that would hopefully maybe explain why they were able to find a Z-95 headhunter from Reaper Squadron there. And then later on, they're like, hey, let's go back there. Maybe there's more, right? Her, Kaz, and I always want to call her Zendara. That's not her name.
Zanara.
Kaz and Zanara head out because they're going to go look for other ones. But I just thought it would be a really cool way that they could have a way to tie back that, oh, look, see, in this new season of Clone Wars, there's a battle out there. Reaper Squadron goes down. We get to know Reaper Squadron. And then maybe even we get to see like the Shelf Oak or something else that would give us some more background that we could tie. And it'd be a really cool way to tie something that far in the future back to something that far in the past. But that's just, again, it could be a crazy theory, but I would like to see that in the new season of Clone Wars.
I would too. I don't know that we're going to see it maybe quite that front and center, but I can definitely hear a call sign or there's some attack and you get that that's Reaper Squadron is out there.
Yeah. Right.
And on Castellon is interesting. I don't think it has to be on Castellon. It can be really anywhere just to get an idea of where they're at. But yeah, I did pick that up and I think that would be really cool. And I agree with you. I think there's a very good chance that Clone Wars is going to pick that up and make some sort of call out reference to that because it's just too, I don't know, it just seems too obvious not to.
Yeah.
And too nice of an opportunity to introduce something else and understand it. And yeah. And for those that it may not be as clear, Reaper Squadron was a squad or a squadron in the Clone Wars, just in case it wasn't totally clear.
Yeah, sorry, I may have kind of skipped over that. But I guess what I was saying is I didn't remember them ever being shown.
No, they're not. I think this is completely new.
Yeah. Cool. All right, let's talk about the next one, which this was probably, I mean, it wasn't a bad episode, but it was probably the weaker of the 6, in my opinion. This was Dangerous Business. And just as a quick blurb, Kaz takes over the shop for Flix and Orca so they can head to visit Flix's mother or somebody. During that time, he's visited by Teraj Key, who's been trying to get a phase connector from the shop for some time now. And that was the MacGuffin here, right? It was really the phase connector. Right. And we come to find out that this thing is basically used by mining colonies and whoever else to bore out, I guess, holes in planets and asteroids and that kind of thing.
Yeah, mining and excavating.
But apart from that, there really wasn't much to this episode that was...
Yeah, and we had to kind of work at it to get to the very end.
That's probably a good point, yeah.
Because we didn't really know what the phase connector was. We didn't know what it was for most of the episode.
Until the very end, yeah.
Yeah, literally like one of the last lines of the show. And then it's like, oh, okay, that's why it's so important. And it started asking, prompting other questions in my head, and it maybe did for you as well, of, this thing was, I don't know, it didn't seem all that large. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was roughly the size of a dinner table in kind of length, and about as tall as a human, maybe 6 foot. But it seemed like it would take a lot of those to fuel what we know they want to do to small planets and asteroids, or not so small planets eventually. So it kind of begged the question of how many of these things do you really need for a potential, again, spoiler alert, Starkiller Base.
So and then that's the part that it wasn't clear to me, because I definitely can see that that usage of this thing. But I started thinking, well, was it meant to be the device that was used to bore out a hole in whatever planet they decided to build Starkiller Base in, so that they could retrofit it with like the cannon itself? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like,
did they bore out that planet in order to put the cannon in there, or was this the thing that somehow was being used as part of Starkiller Base to blow up other planets? That part wasn't exactly clear to me. I think it would make more sense that it was just used to bore out the middle of the planet to put the cannon in, as opposed to blowing up bases. But I mean, who knows? It was very vague.
No, and that's a great point. And it's not. I could see why. I could see the boring and the coring it out it needs to happen as well. But then some of the other pictures that we get later on, and the images in the other episodes where we see the destruction that's happening, or the kind of the testing, it blurs that line a little bit of, is there a direct connection with that? Do these have multi-purposes? Or can you tune them to do something different? And I think that's where I got to it. You're right. It may have this initial use is useful, but once you get that set up, can you crank it up or get enough of them to where you get what we see on screen in Force Awakens?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to see where this goes. We've got an episode coming up that talks a little bit about it.
Yep. I don't know. I feel bad for Ilum, if that's really the planet that got bore out. But anyways, okay.
Whoa, wait, what? Wait, Ilum?
Yeah, Ilum.
What did I miss?
Oh, no, nothing. Let's move on.
Okay.
Let's,
you're like, you're breaking my heart.
No, this is all like unofficial stuff.
Okay.
But anyways, all right, let's talk about the next episode. And this was the Dozit Dilemma. So I forget his name. Is it Kragon? Kragan, that's it. Kragan and his pirates look to kidnap Tora, Doza's daughter, in an effort to force him to accept a First Order security detail on the Colossus. And the first thing I have is, it's so wizard, man. Because we got a quote in there of "It's so wizard," which was cool. I mean, everything Phantom Menace is cool right now because we're celebrating the 20th anniversary. But no, seriously, this was kind of a Sonara show, right? I mean, we got a lot from her and a lot of her background. You get a sense that Kaz and her kind of, at least from Kaz's perspective, it's starting to become more than just friends. You can see that he has an affection there for her. She turns out we get more about her pirate ways. She's a spy, and you get a sense that maybe she's never really had friends before, and so there's a lot of character development I think that happens here, and in the next 2 or 3 episodes with her as well. And she knows what's about to happen, and she almost encourages Tora that she needs to increase the security detail. She's getting, I guess, second thoughts and doubting whether, this is really the right thing to do, because now we're at one point, Kaz and Tora and everybody were all just kind of pawns or, means to an end. They've now become her friends, and she's got mixed feelings about all that. So, and then at the very end, Kaz realizes that she is indeed either the pirate spy or somebody that's helping them. So, let's talk about Sonara. How did you like her as a character, as a scavenger here?
I think this episode and the next one were really good for her, and I ended up liking her a lot more. I think having her kind of infiltrating the team and learning these things, I think is what makes her really interesting. And and I don't know, I'm glad to see they're developing the character. I was a little disappointed where she ended up, only because we do start to see the bonds, and I think I think it's more than Kaz seeing the interest in her or being very obvious about it. But I think there's a little something going his direction as well. Yeah. But she's still very, very guarded on that, and she's not going to let it go. But clearly the rest of the team in general is starting to erode some of that barrier, and she's beginning to think, she's not had any of this before, so it's also foreign to her. And so it's, as she experiences it more often, is she going to allow herself to enjoy that type of environment? Or, I mean, so it's unclear why she wants to go back. Even still, she seems to be doubting going back to Kragan and the company. But, it's frustrating that she ends up going back. But I suppose that could be used as a later plot development as well. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, I'm trying to remember, that's actually the next episode that she goes back. And we can go there real quick, because I had a comment on that too, because Kragan tells her at the very end that, he asked her, is she ready to come home? And she says, more than ever. And she kind of lingers on that. And I don't know what that really means. Like, I think she's trying to convince herself. Yeah, maybe. Almost. No, you're right. It was a little out of place given some of the dialogue we'd had around that. But yeah. I guess so going back to the Dozit Dilemma, we had the First Order double cross. Did you see this one coming? Yeah. Yeah. I did. I mean, right. They want control of the base. So they're pretty clear about that. So whatever they can do in order to satisfy that, they're gonna pull this kind of trick. I was a little surprised we, saw it happen on screen. It the show, it has been trending a bit more towards younger. No one seems to ever hit anything with their blasters kind of thing.
Yeah.
And for them to just pull it and gun them down.
Yeah. Von Red just went nuts on him.
Yeah. It was one of the first times, I think, at least that I recall, that we've seen the violence kind of be front and center and be very clear.
Yeah. I was kind of making a joke. I mean, it's pretty obvious what they're doing here. Even from early on, you got a sense of what was going to happen, that there'd be a double cross, and then they would come in and look like the victors and the saviors for her and try to win over Doza and his allegiance.
What was interesting, though, is when they got back to Doza, to Captain Doza on the Colossus, they just said, here's some troopers. Even though he continued to resist it, all of a sudden now they're like, okay, no, it's cool. We're just going to go and we're going to go. You got it. They're at your command, whatever you need to do. And they just left them there, and he just kind of accepted it. There was no saying no, I guess, at that point.
Yeah.
So that part was a little odd.
Yep. And just quickly, I had in here Kragan's ship, the Galleon. If you haven't had a chance, go look at that. I mean, I don't know if we'll put a link in there, but it's pretty cool. You get a picture of it in this episode, but if you go out to StarWars.com under I think it's the database stuff, but they've got some concept art, or at least maybe the final art in terms of what it really looks like, and you can see it's been compiled of a bunch of Imperial pieces. So like the hull is from an AT-AT. There's a Lambda class shuttle that some parts and pieces of a Lambda class shuttle that they've used to make this thing, but it's a really cool looking thing. And overall, it's supposed to look like a shark. But I just thought it was a neat looking pirate ship and didn't even catch it at first. It wasn't until I was sifting around on the website that I saw that particular picture, but pretty cool design. Yeah,
it's a great design. And it's very reminiscent of Enfys Nest and her crew as well.
Yeah.
And so I like some of the synergies we get between the different mediums going here.
Next episode is the First Order occupation. So the First Order has their security detail now on the Colossus and have locked down the fueling station and harassing the citizens of the Colossus. They're also in search of the pirate spy Sonara, who is looking to get to escape from the base. And so this is probably what you were hitting on with Doza. He's like, I don't understand. Maybe you're right. I didn't really understand why he's just. You have the word delusional. That's probably a good word. He's just completely out of touch of what's happening here. I mean, even everybody seems to know it, but him, right?
Right.
And I think I forget now who makes the comment that the more they kind of, is it Jaeger that says that? Talks about how they're just like the Empire. They're basically lulling you into feeling like you're secure, and at what cost are you buying that security?
Exactly. And there were like 3 episodes in a row where Doza had a conversation with Pyre and just reminded him of just remember who's in control of this station. And he's on a different planet. And I don't like, we watched these in succession, right? So it was really obvious that we got the same message. So if you're doing this week to week, maybe it wasn't so obvious, but it's like, if you say this every day, you might start to doubt who's really in control when they keep showing up and they just kind of do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And so I don't understand why he's having such a difficult time of understanding what's going on. He seems like a very smart guy. He's a former Imperial. He knows how this stuff works.
Right. If anybody should know, he should know.
Exactly. So why is he so dense in this regard to where he does it? And I think he's just hoping he can maintain some sort of order and control over his station.
Yeah.
And clearly it's slipping all the quicker every day.
Yeah. We also we start to see Tam's sympathy for the First Order, which comes on pretty strong here. And we can talk more in the next episode, the new trooper. But yeah, we get a sense of it here. She starts to really kind of question why people are questioning the fact that the First Order's there and some of what their true motives are and that kind of thing. But I guess the other big piece here is that Sonara finally escapes here. And I thought this was a really great moment for her, again, because she's got a pretty cool character arc, even just in these 2-3 episodes, because at the very end, she's given a choice between escaping, getting away, getting off the Colossus, and getting back to her home. And she chooses to go back and save Kaz instead, and misses the opportunity. And so she eventually gets off through, I think, an escape pod or something. And that's when she winds up with Kragan. And we get that line of, her being ready to go back home, quote, more than ever. So
right. We'll have to see how she comes back into this because, they're going to raid the Colossus again at some point.
Yeah.
So what does she decide to, how does she fit into that the next time they run a raid?
Yeah. And yeah, it's a good point. I think I don't know that we see her again until maybe season 2. I've been really not trying to spoil anything. So I think they've already announced the plots or the storylines for the next 3. And I think they've even done the next season. Haven't they not?
I'm not sure.
I thought I saw that.
Because I've been trying to avoid not knowing too much before we get to the last few episodes here.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, we got 2 more episodes here. The next one is the new trooper. So Kel and Ayla knock a stormtrooper unconscious and approach Kaz and Tam with help on what to do next. Kaz puts on the stormtrooper suit and tries to go undercover to determine how much or what the trooper knows about the kids and hopefully find out more about why the First Order is interested in the Colossus. So this turns into... How
bad do you feel for this trooper?
I mean, it turns into Weekend at Bernie's. That's what I have in my comments here. This guy just keeps getting knocked out, and he gets stunned and beat over the head. And the entire time, it's Steve Bloom. I don't know if you caught that. He's playing CS 515 is the name of that stormtrooper, but he comes back to play him. So he's the voice of. I think he's always played stormtroopers, honestly. But but anyways, yeah. So I did feel pretty bad for this guy. But this, more than anything, this episode really starts to highlight Tam's view on the Empire. She makes that comment about, was it her father, working for the Empire to put food on the table?
Yeah, it gave him a job.
It gave him a job, right? She mentions that she would trust the First Order over her friends, that kind of thing. But she comes across as a First Order apologist, a sympathizer. I mean, she tells the kids that, they must have a reason to do that, right? After they had told her that the First Order attacked their homeworld and family. Like, she doesn't even take them at face value that this was a wrong thing. She immediately assumes, well, there was probably a reason they attacked your family and left you orphaned. But
yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, I know. It was like, yeah, grow up, kid. Life sucks and then you die. She makes a comment about feeling safer with them there rather than not being here. So anyways, you get all these, she just keeps making these comments, and there's a whole another aspect, which, with Yeager there, but you almost get the sense that at some point, and I don't know if this is true or not, but if anybody's going to defect over to the First Order, she's making a really strong case for being a likely candidate that would decide if they had to pick a side. I could see her picking the First Order side.
But you can see where this would be a very normal reaction for just anybody in the galaxy. Mm-hmm. With the Empire, now with the First Order, when you have this chaos and you have someone who comes in and is able to restore order, and she puts points out there that support it. Since they got here, crime is down. We're not having as many problems. We haven't had any food shortages, those types of things. And that's where this, the stability side of things really, especially with her background, her father, or they were probably poor. They probably were malnourished. All these things were going against them. And yet here was this opportunity, and it helped stabilize the family. It helped the family probably survive. And so she views those, she doesn't have a negative connotation with it because she hasn't had to view or to see the violent aspect of it, or the betrayal, or any of the negative aspects of it. Even though she's, presumably still had a very challenging life, and a very blue collar life as well. Yeah. But she still, she still has positive reaction to it. It doesn't seem like they're so bad to me.
Yeah. I mean, it worked well for Hitler. So
right. But why would, I just don't understand why she would trust the First Order over her friends. I mean, especially Yeager, who is, probably taking care of her for several years now.
Yeah.
That part rubbed me wrong. I don't understand why that would be the case. And just in the story aspect of that, it seems like I see more conflict on her face. I see it, but it seems like there should be more.
Yeah. I think I've chalked it up to resentment towards Kaz, because before Kaz showed
That's
up,
a good point.
Right, she was supposed to get the fireball, and she was going to be the next ace pilot, and that's why she was
the favorite.
Right, she was the favorite, and then Kaz comes in, he gets her ship. Yeager's basically allowing Kaz to go off and do things, and she's not being held to the same kind of standards and stuff. And you kind of get that sense, especially in this episode, in the next one, the core problem, where she's just resentful, like, this sucks. Why does he get to do everything and you don't say anything, you don't challenge anything? And then the only thing, Jaeger comes back, and this is probably, not really helping on his part, but he keeps coming back to the same thing. Well, there's just things you don't understand.
Yeah.
Right?
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Dad, jerk. So yeah, I mean, I guess there's probably a lot of resentment there, and maybe that's why it's starting to kind of creep into, well, her relationship, or she views the her allegiance with the folks in the Colossus is being different now than with the First Order and all that. But that's probably where it's stemming from. It
seems like at some point, well, I'm just going to speculate for a moment. It seems like at some point, to go back to what you were saying previously, that she's going to find out what Kaz is.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. She's going to have a choice to make about whether she's going to turn him in or not. And I don't know. It sounds like your money is on that she would probably turn him in. Is that the kind of impression I'm getting from you?
Yeah, I think so. Because she was, even in this episode, the first thing after, I think it was after the kids had knocked him unconscious and she saw it, she was like, we got to turn ourselves in. Like,
right.
We've done something wrong here. What are we doing? And then I think she got in over her head because, Niku wasn't helping in his little sadistic ways. But I think she was just way past the point of no return. So she didn't. But I think given that choice made again, or another situation that arises, yeah, I can see where she would maybe defect or do what she thought was right.
I think she'll be tempted. I just don't think they will. I don't think they'll do it with the character, though.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
I don't think they can pull it off with it.
Nope.
But yeah, we'll see. It's probably going to happen. I think the situation's going to happen. We'll just have to see how they resolve it.
The next thing we had, you'd put in here that the full garrison was on the way, and that they weren't. Yep. And I think I remember who says, but they weren't coming to protect the citizens of the Colossus. You kind of, maybe they're setting up for, like a later confrontation or something here. But it sounds like,
yep, you got your foot in the door. Time to kick it down.
Yep, and we see that in the core problem, especially with the opening scene. But we'll come to that here in just a minute. And then finally, called it. But the what was it? The confirmation that the First Order had interest in the Colossus itself.
Right.
And there's two parts here, because initially they say that this is whoever has this is it's a good fueling outpost, right? If a war was to break out,
right.
And then a little bit later, though, they make mention that it's really more about. I don't remember if it was in this episode or the next one with Poe, but he says something about that it's more about ensuring that the Resistance can't have it, rather than, it's great if you can have it, the First Order can use it, but it's more about ensuring that the Resistance doesn't have it. Right? I guess it's two-parter. It's a two-parter there. Yeah,
and it sounds like it's a lane to get in and out of these regions as well,
mm-hmm.
and it's a key point in order to do that. And so the Resistance the First Order is still trying to stay relatively hidden. So it becomes a key supply point for them in order to come in and out from where they're at, I think.
Yeah. Right. All right. The final episode is the core problem. Poe returns for one last mission with Kaz before a more important mission from General Organa. Together, they uncover more evidence that the First Order is up to very big things and even massing a fleet ahead of a looming war.
Okay, so I've got to get something off my chest on this one first.
Yeah.
Is, Poe, why are you in your Resistance pilot garb sneaking onto a First Order controlled base?
Orange garb at that.
Dude, there's no secrecy to what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's in straight up orange jumpsuit, emblazoned with the logo. And yeah, it was kind of hard to sneak on. Now getting off is the hard part. No, dude. Like, not getting seen in your bright orange jumpsuit is going to be hard.
Right. Well, and it's funny too, because ironically, he makes a comment when they do Operation Widowmaker. He says, could you have something about his ship being a less conspicuous color? Right. Do you remember that comment he makes? And I'm like, well, that seems kind of, I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyways.
To use one of your favorite words, bit of a jerk face.
Yeah. A bit of a jerk face. Yeah. So real quickly, it's a good point, Ed. And I let's just give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he came in on something. The reality is, the reason, we all know why they do that, because my kids, if he wasn't wearing that, they'd go, "Who's that guy?" Right? It's like, dude, that's Poe Dameron. Don't you recognize the voice? Yeah. So they got to keep it the same. So otherwise, we lose the young ones. But The opening scene, and this is just something I had in my own personal notes, but I really liked it because this episode opens with 2 TIE fighters kind of screeching across the skyline. And then right when you get to the very end of that, you see 2 more coming across the skyline. And so you get the sense, and it just reminded me of growing up in in San Antonio, where there was an Air Force base there, and that was just life. There were constant fighter planes and bombers and cargo planes, touch and go and lifting off and flying over at all times of the day, throughout the day. And you never, ever forgot that you were in a military town with several military bases there. And that's what this was doing, right? They were trying to show you that, look how much it's been very subtle. If you watch over the last 3-4 episodes up until this point, you see a little bit more stormtroopers show up, then there's more, and then there's more. Now there's a couple TIE fighters, and you get to this point where there's stormtroopers everywhere, and they're constantly flying these little sorties or these little routes in space as well. And it gives you a sense of, whoa, what the heck happened here? Like, it turned in from nothing to, a full garrison like we saw was coming.
It's so funny you say that, because I grew up near an army base as well, and we didn't have airplanes, but we had attack helicopters and transport helicopters. We had all this activity above us all the time, and I had the same reaction to it. It's surprised. It's a little funny that we both had the same type of thing, different environment. This was about, I guess, Fort Hood's probably a couple hours north of San Antonio, something like that. Right. Yeah, but that's kind of funny.
So yeah, going back to Poe Dameron, I mean, he basically just tells us that, hey, General Organa's got a pretty big mission for me, something over on Jakku, and so this would be, right around the start of the comic book, and then obviously the events in The Force Awakens. So it gives us a pretty good sense of the timeline here. It certainly aligns with where we see the Poe Dameron comic kind of pick up. So that's kind of cool. We get introduced to CB-23, who will, I guess, has become now Kaz's droid. So BB-8 and Poe Dameron are now together. And that whole scene with the Operation Widowmaker, I mean, I know this is probably not what they were going for, but it did remind me of the Falcon and the landing claw scene in The Empire Strikes Back, where they get a little bit, with the garbage. But yeah, CB-23. Any thoughts around her? She's kind of cute.
Yeah, I guess BB-8 got too expensive. They couldn't keep paying him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it works. It's another quirky, fun droid,
colorful droid.
Yeah, I'm curious if this means BB-8 is now.
I think he's done.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. He's been with us for a while. He's got to be in other places at some point. So this makes a lot of sense for him to be now out of the show. The show is a little bit stable, and we'll miss him, because it was kind of nice having him there.
Right.
That sense of humor. So she's got to fill that, though. So I think that's the thing that she's got to continue to fill. They've got a writer, perhaps in a similar way as BB-8, but it'll be curious to see how they evolve that a little bit.
Yeah, and I won't spoil it, but the next episode after this, you can tell they're starting to do that. She's got some scenes to herself that let her hold her own and start making a name for herself. So kind of cool. The other big thing really here is, so they head out and they are looking for, what is it? They go out to what they think is a sun and a solar system, or a system that's out nearby. And they get there, and it's, very, very reminiscent of episode 4, where that's what I'm trying to tell you. It's no longer here, kind of thing. The planet's gone, or the star is gone. It's been obliterated and killed. And we can only assume that this is something that Starkiller Base did, and certainly lives up to its name at that point. But then we also see those planets that we mentioned. They've got a number of planets that are kind of floating that were part of the solar system that are just been bored out, which we would assume was with a phase connector or something bore them out. But him being Poe Dameron makes a comment that if they're not drilling because they left the core there. So all the raw materials that you would expect to be useful, that they would mine from the core of a planet, they're all just floating around in space. So they weren't using it for that. Any thoughts on what we were seeing here?
No, I'm not really sure. Because even at first, there's so many debris fields. Mm-hmm. You're kind of wondering if this. I mean, when we saw it in Force Awakens, the shot was able to scatter and hit multiple targets at the same time. So it was unclear if this was the same type of thing where they're practicing hitting multiple, or if they're just going from planetoid to planetoid or from object to object in order to do some of the testing, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a little bit tough to say. They didn't really give you a lot of context with it.
Right. We got a gravity well. That was kind of neat. It was just throwback to Solo. But more importantly, I think when they land on that one planet and they come across a temple, Poe makes a comment that this was, that there was a lot of these temples and a lot of these old ancient quote relics of a bygone era that were out in the Outer Rim, and that he makes a comment that they've been eradicated, that they were purposely eradicated. And interesting enough, and I did not catch this, I can't give myself credit for this, but if you go out to the buckets list and they kind of give you, so buckets list is on StarWars.com, and they kind of give you some Easter egg stuff to kind of look for in the episodes. But one of the ones I thought was interesting for this one was that the symbol that we see on the ancient ruins there while they're on that planet actually is the same symbol that Kel and Ayla have around their neck. So they got a little medallion that they wear around their neck. It's the same one there. So I don't know if this is that same planet or they're just, descendants of the species or whatever. But again, I don't know that you would even catch that without really going frame by frame and looking at it, because they only show those medallions around their necks for brief moments at a time. But anyways, I thought that was a nice way to kind of tie all that back.
It is. It was a little disorienting though that Poe knew anything about some of this, and I had a hard time kind of following that and understanding how he knew about these civilizations or these cultures and how that played into what they were doing. Because what you see on screen and what you naturally start making conclusions to is not quite that same alignment. And I think he did. I'm trying to remember the episode specifically, but I think he did kind of come back and say that, the weapon may have, finished it off.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if that was, I don't recall now.
Yeah.
So speaking of what Poe knows and what he doesn't know, I had in here, how did he not know? Like he makes a comment about the probe droid. He's like, I've never seen one like that, which was weird, but maybe not. Maybe he's just not up. Maybe it's first order technology that he's not aware of, but he makes a comment and then he says something. He starts calling him the mom, which was bizarre, right. But anyways, So anyways, they get off the planet and they get chased by some TIE fighters, go through the gravity well. They make it out. TIE fighters don't. They do the droid swap, which is kind of funny. They kind of just turn their ships onto their sides and eject both of the droids and swap them like that. And there's a cute little moment where they wave at each other.
Did they wave to each other?
Yeah. That was kind of cute. And then once we get to back to the Colossus, we get more of Tam's defiance of Yeager. She seems pissed.
Calls him out.
Yeah, like she's super resentful here. And I guess it's justified. I'm not going to make an argument that it's not, because she's right. I mean, if you think about it, it's been Marsha the whole time. It's all been about Kaz, and it has not been about her. And so I can see, in all seriousness, I can see where she's probably feeling like this.
She knows he's lying. She knows he's lying to her.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not transparent with any of it. He's hiding things. There's clearly stuff going on, and they were supposed to be, somewhat of a tight unit. And now all of a sudden this stranger comes into the mix, and he's got free reign of the shop. And he's not very good at what he does. He's getting better, but he's still not very good. Yeah. And he's a bit of a screw up. And yet he's got Yeager's undying devotion, it seems like. And so she's swinging an extreme, but she's not wrong. I mean, she's absolutely right that she has these are the things that are all going to come to a head here pretty shortly. And I'm kind of wondering if the season finale is finally going to blow the lid off this thing.
Yeah, we will see. We're not that far away from it. So, all right. Well, that's gonna do it for this episode and kind of recapping all that. Hopefully you got something out of this, and hopefully you're following along with us on all of these episodes. We'll come back and finish this season up at some point here, probably before Celebration. I would imagine we'd want to do that before Celebration starts, because there'll be too much to talk about after that. That's not Resistance. Yeah.
Well, it depends on what we get.
Yeah, I guess that's true. It really depends on what we get. So if you'd like to follow us on social media, you can do so at Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're at the Cantina Cast. You can shoot us an email at cantinacastfanmail@gmail.com. We now have the Cantina Cast hotline. That's 803-717-CAST, CAST. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, or you can even shoot a text over to us as well. We'd love to hear from you. Any feedback that you might have about this show or any of our previous shows, or if you've got questions that you want to queue up for one of our listener question and answer shows, you can do that in any one of those ways. What am I missing? Discord.
Yeah, Discord.
Yeah.
airbluemedia.com/Discord.
There you go. Visit the website, visit Discord, come visit us there, talk to us, chat with us. We'd love to hear from you. So, all right. That's going to do it for this episode. Next week, we are going to do something with lightsabers. We won't tell you exactly what it is, but I think it's something we haven't really explicitly covered in since we've been doing the show and even before the guys before us were doing. So we will get into some lightsaber discussion and kind of talk about some of the significance there around those. With that, any final words before we go?
No, punch it.
Punch it. Punched. We'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.